Hi, it's Linda with CreativePLR.com, and if we're getting ready for back to school, which you should be getting ready if you're selling materials for either teachers or for use in the classroom or for homeschooling parents. Okay, so today we're going to do some Would You Rather cards. Now, this same technique can be used for, if I'm going to use Bulk Create to create the Would You Rather cards because I want a lot of them. And Would You Rather cards, if you've never heard of them, are kind of a fun way to get to know students. Teachers use them. I use them all year round, especially at the beginning of the year. It gets the kids comfortable with each other, gets the kids talking to each other and the teacher, and you get to know something about the kids. And so, for younger kids, like in the elementary or even pre-elementary, you would keep the questions, the choices really simple. Would you rather have a snake for a pet or a rabbit? Simple words that the kids would know, or you could read them to them, but words that they would recognize. When you start talking about something that's more involved, like would you rather travel 10 years into the future, or would you rather travel 10 years in the past? Kids at the really young ages, why they might understand that, would be a little bit more difficult for them. And so those kinds of questions, the longer, more contemplative questions, would be great for the middle school and upper level high school kids. And so I use Would You Rather cards because they actually are a lot of fun. But some of them are really thought provoking, and that's the whole idea of using them, is to get kids thinking and talking. So in Canva, I do my cards individually, and I will put 4 on a page. And in fact, you can see some flashcards I did here. There's 4 on a page with some math facts. And I did the same technique for that. And I make my cards 5 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall. And when I do that, I'm making an individual card. These cards were all made with that same size. And then what I did when I was finished, I saved them as PNG files. And then I uploaded them again to Canva, and I put 4 on a page. I put 4 on a page because it's easier for teachers when they print, then they can cut them apart. You don't need an 8.5 by 11 inch page. However, having said that, I can see a use for, if you had a page size, somebody could print them out, put it on the wall, and we could walk around and point to it and say, answer this question. Okay. But most typically they're used as little task cards, so 4 on a page works perfectly. And so I've set up my my individual 5 by 3.5 inches, and I put a little paper on the background. Okay, I had uploaded some school paper, and I think if you've been watching this for the last couple of weeks, it's the same school paper I've been using. You could just change it, replace the background. And then I go to my elements and I put a shape on there, and it's a square, and then I stretch it out. And then I kind of move it around a little bit where I'm centered, just like that. I get those crosshairs. And then I put a text on there. Now, I've seen other people talk about how to do this, and everybody has their own way of doing it. And so I did the text box on there, and all I did was I put something on there. I left it as just text because when you use Bulk Create, you're going to connect to whatever name that the file is saved under. And in this case, it was just under name. And I put the text on there, and people have said, okay, so if you have longer sentences or shorter sentences of whatever you're putting on the page from Bulk Create, your text box is going to be a little bit off. So some I'll need to shrink the text. Some I'll need to shrink the text box, and you'll notice I've got it right here toward the upper part in the center, but when I actually create, it's going to change the size. It'll change the size of the text box, it'll change the size of everything, and I'll have to go back and tweak it. Now, I'm doing 100 of these cards because I want 25 pages. Would I sell 25 pages? I might. But that gives me, if I have some that are like, well, that seems similar to the one I just had, so that gives me the choice. I can delete a few, okay? Or you can delete a few before you begin. So, but I go back, and on all 100 cards, I'm going to adjust the text box. And what I've heard people say is, if you make the card, and I'll show you, and the text box is off, then just start over again and adjust this text box right at the beginning, shrink it down, make the text smaller, and redo it and regenerate the cards. Well, that's one, I've tried that. And I had to regenerate the cards 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and still they weren't perfect. And maybe my definition of is good enough is different from yours, and that's okay. But it was just easier and faster to go through, and some of the cards I had to actually put the text box within the card that I had created, and I also had to shrink the text a little bit. So I had to do both things. On some, I had to just shrink the text. On some, I just had to change. On this one, I just have to change the text box dimensions, and it fits perfectly. So you're going to have to change it anyway. Even if you are perfect on the front end with that text box, it still has to be adjusted slightly to make it look good. So you can decide if you want to keep regenerating them, or you want to do like I'm doing and go through and change each one separately. Okay, and so then you would scroll down to bulk create, and I know I've showed you this before. I had my would you rather cards all saved here, and you notice some are longer than others. Okay, would you rather be able to see 10 minutes in the future or 100 years, or 100 years, 10 minutes into the future or 100 years in the future? I personally, 10 minutes in the future doesn't do any good. I'd rather go 100 years. If we're talking about 100 years in the future, 100 years in the past, if I'm just visiting, I'd rather go in the past. I don't know about you. Okay, so I copied those, and then I went over to bulk create, and it comes in at 2 columns. It's already formatted for 2 columns. I just right-clicked on the column. I deleted that second column, and then I copied my would you rather statements in here, and then I saved it. I said I'm done. I continued. I've already got this connected. You would, whatever your text is there, you would go through and you would connect, and it's already connected, and it's ready to generate 100 pages. So it does it like that fast, like 2 or 3 seconds. Now, that text box, see, I'm still going to have to adjust it. This one, I always thought I wanted to read minds, and I've decided that's not a good idea. Okay, so if you adjust the font and the box so it fits perfectly for the larger items, the smaller items are not going to fit as well. So it is going to, you're still going to have to do this, and I don't mind doing this 100 times. It's probably going to take me 3 or 4 minutes, and when I tried readjusting and regenerating, that took me like 40 minutes. So you can decide if, how you want to spend your time. If you want to spend it regenerating or you want to spend it adjusting, and I would just as soon adjust. Okay, so then you would do this. Then I would save them as a PNG file. I would then, on a white 11.5 by 11 by 8.5 inch landscaped page, what I did was I put these shapes on there, and I colored them black. I didn't really care, but I knew I had a black outline on the outside of the cards. And so then I did one page, and with the right shapes and in the right place, and then I just took my individual cards that I created and I added them, and they won't be perfectly sized. I did 4 at a time, and then I just added them, and you can adjust them slightly and put them there. And that was easier way to resize them so that I knew that they were approximately all the same size, and they're perfect now for printing out and cutting apart. Okay, I hope this was helpful. You can do task cards, sight cards, math facts. If you're going to do math facts, I would suggest that you add an answer key. I don't do flashcards for the reason is the whole idea of a flashcard is somebody does whatever's on the front. They turn it over to see if they're correct. But kids nowadays, especially after COVID, they don't do it themselves. They just turn it over and, see what the answer is. So, but if you're going to sell this, you have to do an answer key. I bought many products that didn't have an answer key, and I didn't leave a great review. Okay, so Even adults, you would think adults that are using this would be able to add, but they shouldn't have to add. They should have the answer key readily available so they could just check the word. Okay, I hope this was helpful and you start making some cards of some kind. Would you rather, math facts, some science vocabulary, sight words would be all be great options.